5 easy tricks to stay calm in a stressful situation. Being able to keep level-headed in a stressful situation is an incredibly powerful gift. This is what will allow you to best deal with the situation, and it is what will help you to rise to a position of leadership within any given group. The only problem? We are biologically hardwired in a way that makes this very difficult. Our bodies react to stressful situations by releasing hormones and neurotransmitters designed to get our hearts racing and our blood pumping. This makes it very hard indeed for us to remain calm. Here are 5 things you can do to overcome that urge. Detach yourself. One great way to remain calm and to make sure you act sensibly is to try and detach yourself from the situation. By this, I mean that you effectively remove your personal stake in the situation by asking not what you should do, but what a person should do. Try to judge the situation objectively and in a removed manner. Breathe. Breathing more deeply and more slowly will bring into action your rest and digest state through the parasympathetic nervous system, and it will counteract some of the physiological changes going on in your body right now. Ask yourself the best scenario. Having a clear goal can often help you in a high-stress situation. Instead of floundering, first, task yourself with asking what the best outcome you could achieve is. Then, take steps to help yourself get to that point. Accept failure. Another thing to do is to accept the possibility of failure and be okay with it. Be okay with being hurt, with making matters worse, or with being shouted at. Very often in a stressful situation, we find ourselves so worried about potentially making matters worse or making ourselves responsible that we end up frozen in indecision. Pick a decision and act on it. So, with that in mind, the final thing to do is simply to take these matters into your own hands. That means acting on whatever it is you have decided to do, and it means not spending any more time considering the possibilities. Our anxiety actually comes from picturing events and specifically picturing the worst-case scenarios. As far as our biology is concerned, this makes it as though the worst-case scenarios were happening. So, instead of thinking, just act. 5 style tips that will boost your confidence. The way you look and the way you dress can make a huge impact on the way that you come across and the way that you feel. We judge books by their covers all the time, even though we know better, and first impressions are terribly hard to shake. But it goes deeper than that and becomes a matter of self-fulfilling prophecies. If you feel good about what you wear, and if you think you look good, then you will walk taller, speak louder, and generally present yourself in a manner that makes you more impressive. And that changes the way that others react to you and the confidence they put in you. This in turn makes you feel even better about yourself. So it's what you call a virtuous cycle, where one positive change to your outfit can result in a cascade of changes to massively impact how you act and feel. Here are 5 tips to set you on your way. Get a good haircut. And go regularly. This can make a massive difference to your overall appearance. Having long hair with split ends or hair that's just too overgrown to style properly just makes you look a little messy and as though you rushed out of bed. Not a good look. Wear good shoes. Get a good pair of shoes and a good bed, because if you're not in one, you're in the other. Many people judge others on the basis of their shoes, and this is something we wear nearly every day. Invest some more money here than you do elsewhere in your wardrobe. Wear something loud. Guys, every now and then it's a good idea to wear something a little louder, whether that means a white suit or a bright shirt. It says you're confident and not afraid to be the center of attention. And women, try wearing a little red lipstick or some big heels. Again, loud choices make you appear proud of your new look. Fewer, nicer items. It's far better to have a few high-quality items than lots of low-quality ones. People can see the difference. Be comfy. But finally, make sure you're also comfortable in what you wear. If you wear uncomfortable clothes, then it will play on the back of your mind and it will interfere with your performance. 5 ways life is better when you feel more confident. Self-confidence eludes many people, and that's a terrible shame considering just how crucial it is to our success and our happiness. Once you start believing in yourself, so too do other people. And when that happens, doors start opening and opportunities begin to present themselves to you. With that in mind, let's take a look at some of the ways that life gets much better once you have rock-solid confidence in yourself. 1. Dating. This is obvious, but being more confident in who you are makes you considerably more successful in dating. Confidence sends a social signal that a person is a good potential mate, and this in turn makes that person far more attractive. The assumption is that they must have something to offer, whether that's resources or just genetic material. This is an unconscious process, of course, but it makes a huge impact in terms of your dateability. And yes, that is a word. 2. Appearance. Believe it or not, being more confident makes you physically more attractive. This happens in countless subtle ways as you take on a more confident body language and as you start to dress in a more confident way too. 3. Career. Confidence gives you the gumption you need to put yourself forward for things, to take risks, and to speak up. It also gives others confidence in you, which can result in them investing in you more. The result is that you more quickly climb the corporate ladder and become more successful in your own ventures too. 4. Health. Being more confident makes you considerably more happy. When you like yourself, you become happier with your own company. You go easier on yourself and you have less to worry about. All this has an additional knock-on effect on your health. Less stress and anxiety and less depression all help to increase your immune function and to reduce your likelihood of becoming ill or even injuring yourself. 5. Relationships. Your dating life will start going better when you're more confident, not to mention your sex life. But so too will your relationships elsewhere. Being more confident means you'll be less clingy and less defensive, which makes it easier to make friends. It also means you'll be more assertive, meaning others are less likely to try and take advantage of you. And it will make you a more effective leader too. Confident body language for anyone. Did you know it's often said that 93% of communication is non-verbal? That is to say, a lot of our meaning and our mood is conveyed through means other than the words we choose. And vocabulary, phrasing and literal meaning only accounts for 7% of the ideas and emotions we convey through our language. The rest? Well, that comes down to 55% body language and 38% tone of voice. In this presentation, we'll learn how to take care of that 55%. The basics. Body language is something that we all use unconsciously. Many of us will move our hands in a certain way, make particular gesticulations and position ourselves and stand in particular ways too. All of this conveys something about how we feel and what we want to say. And this may or may not be congruent with the actual words coming out from our mouths. Of course, if the body language we're giving off says one thing and the words we're saying mean something else, then this calls into doubt our reliability and our truthfulness. For instance, if you're trying to put on a tough show but you're speaking in a nervous, shaky voice, then you'll come across as highly unconscious. Likewise, if you speak confidently but your body language is bad, that will give away the game. What makes for confident body language? A number of things we can do with our bodies will make us appear confident or otherwise. On the whole, for instance, it's generally agreed that taking up more space makes us seem more confident. Likewise, so does exposing your most vulnerable areas. Leaning on something or touching something makes you seem possessive of that item. So if you're leaning nonchalantly in a doorway or you're slumped over a sofa with your legs apart, then these things will make you appear more confident. Conversely, if you put up a guard by crossing your arms, if you look downward, and if you bring your knees together, this makes you look vulnerable and shy. Do keep in mind that body language is best read in clusters. Certain things make you seem more or less confident, but there are other factors that might be at play. For instance, if your arms are crossed, then this might simply be because you're cold. It's about the big picture and what all that information says collectively about you. How to be more assertive while still gaining respect. Often, we are stuck between a rock and a hard place when it comes to our interactions with others. More specifically, we are often forced to choose between being assertive and standing up for ourselves and being nice. In other words, these two options often seem mutually exclusive. It seems as though being nice often comes with the prerequisite that you should also be a pushover. This is something of a problem, seeing as most of us want to be treated with respect and not become a human doormat. But likewise, most of us also like to think of ourselves as nice, decent people, and we don't want to cause anyone else undue harm or upset. In this presentation, we'll discuss how you can be assertive while at the same time inspiring respect in others. Keep your cool. Assertive is a good word because it's subtly different from aggressive or angry. When you are assertive, you are simply asserting yourself, which broadly means you're stating what it is that you want or how you feel. This is different from being passive or inactive and letting things just happen to you. But it's also different from being angry, aggressive, or explosive. When we lose our cool and shout and rave, we actually come across as a little unhinged and certainly rattled. These reactions do not help us gain respect because they just make us seem out of control. Know what you want. In order to assert, you first need to know what it is that you wish to assert in the first place. In other words, if you're making some kind of point or you're putting the world to rights, then you better know exactly what it is that you're trying to say. Raging because you're unhappy with a situation makes you seem like a whiner or a crybaby. Instead, tell the person who has wronged you what you want and what you expect them to do about it. Don't make excuses. A lot of people will tell you never to say sorry. That's a big commitment, so I wouldn't necessarily go that far. But what I would say is that many of us say sorry too much, and it can actually make us seem a little weak at times. Instead of apologizing then, be willing to ruffle a few feathers sometimes. Be fair, but be firm when you need to be. How to have 100% certainty in your entrepreneurial venture. One of the things that is most responsible for holding us back is a lack of certainty. Now, what do I mean by this? I mean that we unfortunately lack faith in our own ideas and plans, and that in turn prevents us from ever giving them the best chance possible. This is why you often don't work out, and it's certainly why you don't invest time, money, and effort into that entrepreneurial venture. Think about it. You might think of yourself as lazy, or as flaky, or generally as someone who doesn't see things through to completion. But ask yourself how often you take time off work. You go to work every single day and do the things you need to do there every single day, no matter how tired or uninspired you are. And why is that? It's because you have certainty. You're willing to invest that kind of time and effort because you know that you'll get paid every single day. And if you knew that your workouts would get you into incredible shape, then you will be able to hit the gym every single day. We don't because we think we'll give up before it happens, or because we don't trust in the routine or in our own bodies. If you knew that your entrepreneurial venture was destined for greatness, you would find time every day to make it happen. So, how do you know? 1. Redefine success. Rethink what success means to you. Perhaps you don't need to be super rich. Aim for something lower to begin with and be happy to reach that point. You'll probably find that you can be just as happy this way. 2. Follow a blueprint. Being an entrepreneur doesn't always need to mean breaking the mold. In fact, a lot of the most successful businesses simply recycle well-known strategies and well-known methodologies. Open up a high street store. Open up a hair salon. Take a business that you know works and then, well, do that. 3. Bootstrap. Bootstrapping means that you're going to fund your big picture with smaller and less exciting business strategies. That may mean, for example, that you sell a product in order to fund a much bigger product. Or it might mean selling a service while using the time left over to work on R&D. Oh, and finally, believe in yourself. Believe you can do anything, and you'll be one step closer to making your vision a reality. How to overcome social anxiety easily. Social anxiety is an incredibly crippling condition. Being afraid to speak up essentially renders us voiceless, which in turn means we become passengers in our own lives. We end up with no say about what we do, what we achieve, where we go, or who we become. So, what can you do to start kicking some ass again? Let's take a look at how you can become socially bulletproof. Understand where social anxiety comes from. Social anxiety comes from a desire not to be embarrassed, shamed, or hurt. This is an evolutionary response that is intended to prevent us from making matters worse and to protect us from damaging our own likelihood of survival. When we want to impress someone or make a good impression, we begin to picture all the ways that the interaction could go wrong. And in doing so, we end up triggering a fight or flight response. Only this freezes our ability to make a rational decision and makes us more likely to embarrass ourselves. So, what can you do to prevent this fate? Practice makes perfect. The first objective is to discredit the worst-case scenarios that you're picturing in your head and to start picturing the best-case scenarios. Start picturing yourself impressing the people you're talking to and making a great impact. Now, that's easier said than done, though, seeing as this reaction is something that has become deeply ingrained. And this is why we might use a technique from cognitive restructuring that is known as hypothesis testing. This means you test the notion that you might embarrass or upset yourself and thereby prove to yourself that you're wrong. And you do this by facing those fears and by testing the worst case scenarios. So, for example, if you were worried that you're going to embarrass yourself by stuttering, then you could test that theory by purposefully stuttering in conversations. Do this enough times and you'll prove to yourself that no one laughs and no one thinks less of you. After all, times have changed since our limbic systems evolved. The problem, of course, is practicing all this in a way that won't cause lasting damage. So try going to more parties where you only know a few people. Try speaking to strangers in the street or in stores. And each time you do, practice putting yourself out there and even intentionally embarrassing yourself. That's how you become desensitized, and that's how you become socially limitless. How to speak more confidently in any situation. Talking is something that most of us do on a daily basis. As such, most of us will probably say that, for the most part, we feel pretty good doing it. We can talk to our parents, our friends, our partners. But then, when we really need that gift of the gab, it can end up letting us down. This is what happens when we're in a physical or verbal confrontation. It's what happens when many of us go on dates, and it's what happens when we're in interviews. The problem isn't talking. The problem is talking confidently. So in this presentation, we're going to look at how you can always do that, no matter the circumstances. Tip 1. Stand up. The first tip is to fix your body language. And specifically, that means you should stand more erect with your chest somewhat puffed out. Doing this will immediately make you take up more physical space, making you more dominant and helping you to at least seem more confident. At the same time, this will help with the acoustics of your voice and mean that everything you say comes out louder and more clearly. Tip 2. Speak more slowly. The more nervous we are, the faster we tend to talk. This has the effect of making our voice sound higher pitched, weaker, and ultimately less confident. Your job then is to try and overcome this by speaking more slowly. This makes you sound instantly deeper and more confident, and it makes the content of what you're saying seem more considered and trustworthy. Tip 3. Breathe. If you are panicked and if you're shaking, then you will sound nervous. That stands to reason. Try to get your physiological response under control then. The best way to do this is to breathe more slowly and more fully, which will help to get your parasympathetic nervous system back under control so that your heart stops racing. Tip 4. Relax. When you are nervous, the release of hormones and neurotransmitters tends to make you tense up and become more physically anxious. By relaxing, you can counteract this fact and you can loosen the muscles around your throat and vocal cords, making you sound deeper, more powerful, and more confident. And finally, tip 5, make eye contact. Often the best way to become more confident is to act more confident until that becomes a reality. And one of the best ways to act more confident? Make eye contact with whoever it is that you're talking to. Quick ways to boost your confidence. Want to raise your confidence and raise your game? It takes a long time to address the kinds of deep-seated insecurities that lead to chronic low esteem. But that said, there are some things that you can do right now that will have short-term and immediate benefits to raise your confidence. Let's take a look at some of the best. Adopt a power position. Using larger body language exhibits more confidence, but it also actually triggers the release of testosterone and other chemicals that make you feel more assertive, aggressive, and successful. Remember something you did well. Think about the last time you absolutely killed it and try to remember that occasion. Now live in that moment for a while and let it psych you up into the same mental state you experienced the first time round. Work out. Work out makes us more confident in a whole ton of different ways. Not only does working out trigger the release of adrenaline, testosterone, and more hormones that boost confidence, but it also makes us feel good because we've done something productive. Which leads us to the next point. Do something productive. Just doing something quickly that will offer a quick win is a great way to raise confidence too. Make the bed, tidy the kitchen, shoot off a quick email, get something done and feel good about it. Listen to some music. There are a lot of music tracks out there that are built around raising your confidence and self-esteem. Might I suggest some tracks by the artist Stan Bush, which are all about killing it? Spend time with friends. If you have just a little bit of time to build your confidence, then try spending some time with friends or a partner, anyone who makes you feel good about yourself. As a side note, you need more of these kinds of people in your life and fewer of the ones that make you feel worthless. Do something scary. Even better than quickly doing something productive is to quickly do something that you're normally afraid to do. This is an even more powerful quick win. It could mean that you give a talk in public or that you attempt a backflip. Facing fears ultimately diminishes them. Finally, fix up your look. The way we look has a big impact on the way we feel. Fix up your outfit. Get a haircut or have a shave. Feel like $1,000,000. 3 things you're doing that damage your confidence. A lot of people have problems with their self-confidence and don't feel quite as pleased about who they are as maybe they should. We've all had those days where we feel a bit worthless, and we've all had interactions with people where we felt like we don't belong or weren't as impressive somehow as the others in the group. And often we feel like victims for this reason. We feel as though we've been dealt a bad hand to have such low self-esteem. But guess what? You might also be somewhat responsible. Not only is it your responsibility to dig yourself out of that pit, but you might also be the one who put yourself there in the first place. In this presentation, we'll cover 3 things that you're doing that damage your self-esteem. Replaying uncomfortable experiences. When someone says something cruel about you, how do you react? Many of us respond by replaying what they've said in our heads over and over again. And we do the same thing when we trip over and embarrass ourselves in public. And we do the same thing when we've had a bad date or a bad interview. You get the point. While it's useful to replay these events to look for things we could do better, it becomes destructive if we do this over and over, and you end up cementing certain neural pathways. So, have a debrief, then move on. Being too polite and humble. It's nice to be polite and humble to some extent, but there becomes a point where it actually just amounts to putting yourself down. If you're constantly humble, then you are positioning yourself below others, and eventually you start to believe that's where you should be, and so do other people. Playing it safe. Essentially, a lack of confidence comes down to fear. Usually, this means a fear of getting it wrong. The only way to get over that fear is to prove to yourself that it's unfounded. How? By facing that fear. And that means getting out of your comfort zone and taking risks. If you're shy of social situations, then put yourself out there and speak to people. If you're unconfident in doing DIY, then grab that drill and start getting to work. This takes courage. And ultimately, courage is the #1 tool for vanquishing a lack of confidence.